March 14, 1944. Luftwaffe Headquarters, Berlin, Germany. Oberst Heinrich Brandt thumbed through the intelligence report, his mouth twisting into a smirk. The morning sun glinted off his iron cross as he tossed the document across the mahogany desk. "Look at this," Brandt said, flicking ash from his cigarette. "The Americans are sending Neger pilots to escort their bombers." Hauptmann Klaus Weber nodded, leaning forward with a grin. "They must be scraping the bottom of the barrel if they're putting untrained coloreds in fighters." Major Friedrich Halser, Chief Intelligence Analyst for the 8th Air Force Sector, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "The reports suggest they've completed the same training as other American fighter groups. Perhaps we shouldn't dismiss them so quickly." But Brandt waved him off with a dismissive gesture. "We've shot down 147 American bombers in the last month with a loss rate of 8, 1 in our favor. The Mustang is a good aircraft, but it means nothing without skilled pilots." At Schweinfurt, they'd achieved 12 1-kill ratios. Over Regensburg, 15-1. At the second Schweinfurt raid, 9-1 with 60 bombers destroyed in a single afternoon. The mathematics were undeniable. German pilot training, tactical doctrine, and combat experience created an insurmountable advantage. What Brandt didn't know, what none of them could have known as they laughed in that wood-paneled office, was that the 332nd Fighter Group would achieve escort mission loss rates 66% lower than the 8th Air Force average within 8 months. The numbers would become catastrophic, mission after mission with 0 bomber losses under 332nd Escort. By December 1944, the 332nd would have flown 200 missions. Over 15,943 individual sorties. The laughter in that Berlin office would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 10,000 German fighter pilots lost to an enemy they dismissed as inferior. Brandt had built his confidence on a foundation of documented victories. At the first Schweinfurt raid in August 1943, Luftwaffe fighters destroyed 36 B-17s with losses of only 3 fighters, a 12-1 ratio. At Regensburg the same day, 24 bombers fell for 2 German aircraft, a 12-1 ratio. The second Schweinfurt mission in October saw 60 bombers destroyed against 5 German fighters, another devastating 12-1 exchange. These weren't aberrations. These were consistent results that confirmed German tactical and technical superiority. The Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6 carried 2 13 MG 131 machine guns and 1 20 MG 151 20 cannon. Maximum speed, 386 mph at 22,640 feet. Service ceiling, 39,370 feet. The Focke-Wulf FW 190A8 mounted 2 13 MG 131s and 4 20 MG 151 20 cannons. Maximum speed, 408 mph at 20,600 feet. Rate of climb, 2,350 feet per minute. These aircraft, in the hands of experienced pilots, had proven themselves against American bombers repeatedly. American failures in 1943 validated German confidence. The Schweinfurt-Regensburg raids cost 60 bombers in a single day. The second Schweinfurt raid lost 77 aircraft with another 121 damaged. In October 1943 alone, the 8th Air Force lost 214 heavy bombers. The Americans were bleeding aircraft faster than they could replace them, and they'd been forced to suspend deep penetration raids for months. Every statistic confirmed that American bomber formations, even with their defensive firepower, remained vulnerable to concentrated fighter attack. Oberst Brandt personally held the Knight's Cross with oak leaves for 87 confirmed aerial victories. He'd flown in Poland, France, Britain, and Russia before transferring to Reich Defense. His squadron had destroyed 43 American bombers in the past 6 months. At Münster, his fighters had shredded a B-17 formation, destroying 8 bombers in 14 minutes. His experience and that of his fellow aces created a tactical advantage that no amount of American industrial production could overcome. Training a fighter pilot required 3 years. You couldn't mass-produce expertise. Major Halser presented his intelligence summary at the weekly briefing, citing reports from agents in North Africa and Italy about the 99th Fighter Squadron's performance. They've flown 500 sorties with acceptable loss rates. Their ground attack missions show competency. If they receive proper fighter escort training and equipment, they could pose a legitimate threat. Oberst Brandt interrupted with a harsh laugh. Competency in shooting at ground targets means nothing in air combat. When they face experienced pilots in superior aircraft, Mathematics and skill will prevail over American optimism. The assembled officers nodded agreement. Numbers didn't lie. Hauptmann Weber had witnessed American escort failures firsthand. On March 6, flying near Berlin, he'd engaged a formation of P-47 Thunderbolts attempting to protect B-17s. The American fighters, burdened by drop tanks and lacking combat discipline, scattered when pressed. His Staffel destroyed 6 bombers in 22 minutes while the escorts circled uselessly. The Americans fly predictable patterns. Their doctrine emphasizes formation over initiative. They're like bulls charging at a cape, powerful but stupid. His combat reports documented 14 bomber kills in 3 months. The evidence was everywhere. American courage couldn't substitute for German tactical sophistication. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. German fighters had destroyed over 1,000 American heavy bombers in 1943. The 8th Air Force's loss rate exceeded 5% per mission on deep penetration raids. At that attrition rate, bomber crews had a statistical life expectancy of 20 missions. The Americans needed 25 missions for a combat tour. The numbers said most crews wouldn't survive. This wasn't propaganda. This was arithmetic. Tuskegee, Alabama, January 1944. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., walked through Tuskegee Army Airfield as maintenance crews worked on the newly arrived P-51 Mustangs. The facility trained 44 pilots monthly. Every 16 hours, another pilot completed advanced fighter training and received his wings. In March 1941, America trained 37 black pilots annually at Tuskegee. By June 1942, the program produced 89 pilots monthly. By December 1943, Tuskegee was training 124 pilots monthly while simultaneously running bomber escort tactical courses. By January 1944, the single facility at Tuskegee was producing more trained black fighter pilots monthly than the entire Luftwaffe could replace from its shrinking pilot training pipeline. German fighter pilot schools graduated 87 pilots monthly in January 1944, down from 340 monthly in 1942. This single American training facility was producing more qualified pilots in a specialized program than Germany's entire remaining fighter training establishment. Eleanor Roosevelt had visited Tuskegee in 1941, flying with Chief Instructor Charles Chief Anderson to demonstrate that black pilots could fly as competently as white pilots. Her involvement helped secure continued funding when segregationist politicians threatened the program. Political support translated to resources. Resources translated to infrastructure. By 1944, Tuskegee operated 47 training aircraft, graduated pilots in 3 specialized tracks including fighter escort doctrine, and maintained standards equivalent to or exceeding white fighter training programs. The production progression demonstrated American industrial and institutional capacity. In March 1941, America produced just 37 black military pilots that entire year. By June 1943, production reached 89 pilots monthly. By January 1944, Tuskegee alone was producing 124 pilots monthly across multiple specialized programs. This single facility was producing more fighter pilots than the entire Luftwaffe Fighter Training Command. Second Lieutenant Robert W. Williams, previously an automotive mechanic from Detroit, now flew P-51B training missions practicing bomber escort tactics. He completed 47 training sorties in 6 weeks, each focused on specific escort doctrines: close escort, area patrol, fighter sweep ahead of bomber formation, and withdrawal support. His training flight hours exceeded 180 in 2 months. This single pilot's training allocation of fuel, aircraft, and instruction time exceeded what the Luftwaffe allocated to 3 replacement pilots. He produced more training flight hours in 60 days than a German replacement pilot accumulated in 6 months of abbreviated training. Technical Sergeant William E. Thomas, from Birmingham, Alabama, supervised P-51 maintenance operations that kept 38 aircraft mission-ready daily. His maintenance section processed 76 aircraft inspections weekly, repaired 23 aircraft monthly, and overhauled 8 engines monthly. His single maintenance section's monthly parts allocation exceeded the entire monthly spare parts allocation for 2 Luftwaffe fighter groups. His team discarded worn brake pads that the Luftwaffe salvaged and reused until catastrophic failure. Colonel Noel F. Parrish, White, commander of Tuskegee Army Airfield and former command pilot, managed training operations that graduated pilots at rates exceeding many white training facilities. His administrative overhead, instructor quality, and aircraft availability created an assembly line that transformed civilian volunteers into combat-ready fighter pilots in 9 months compared to Germany's increasingly abbreviated 7-month program that sacrificed quality for quantity. Americans discarded 340 gallons of aviation fuel daily from training aircraft that returned with fuel reserves. The Luftwaffe allocated 280 gallons monthly per training aircraft. The waste from single-day training operations at Tuskegee exceeded Germany's monthly training fuel allocation for an entire squadron. In March 1944, Tuskegee training operations consumed 47,000 gallons of aviation fuel. The Luftwaffe allocated 39,000 gallons monthly for all fighter pilot training in southern Germany. The waste from single training operations exceeded German combat allocations. Americans threw away damaged practice ammunition that Germany issued for combat operations. A single day's discarded .50 caliber rounds from malfunction testing totaled 2,400 rounds. The Luftwaffe allocated 1,800 rounds monthly per fighter for all operations, including combat. Workers threw away aluminum rivets with minor defects that German mechanics salvaged and reused. A single week's discarded rivets from Tuskegee maintenance operations weighed 47 pounds. The Luftwaffe allocated 34 pounds of aluminum rivets monthly for an entire fighter group's maintenance operations. The cafeteria discarded more food daily than Luftwaffe pilots received monthly. Tuskegee's cafeteria threw away 240 pounds of edible food daily from overproduction and training exercises. The average Luftwaffe pilot received 180 pounds of food monthly, including bread, potatoes, and occasional meat. American pilots and trainees consumed 340 pounds of food monthly, including fresh meat, vegetables, dairy, and fruit. The discarded food could have fed an entire German fighter squadron. The training aircraft written off due to accidents exceeded the Luftwaffe's replacement capacity. In 1943, Tuskegee wrote off 23 training aircraft as total losses from accidents. These 23 aircraft could have equipped an entire Luftwaffe fighter squadron. The Americans simply ordered replacements. By January 1944, all lost aircraft had been replaced and inventory increased by 12 aircraft. This single facility's accident losses and replacement capacity exceeded what Germany allocated to frontline units. Major Halser compiled intelligence reports in Berlin, documenting American training capacity. His February 1944 report noted, "Tuskegee facility trains 124 pilots monthly. This exceeds our replacement production by 37 pilots. If this represents only specialized training for a minority program, their total pilot production likely exceeds our capacity by 400-600 monthly. This creates an unsustainable attrition model for Reich defense." The report was filed, but generated no strategic response. The Luftwaffe couldn't increase production. They could only hope American pilots remained inferior in combat effectiveness. March 24, 1944, near Berlin, Germany, 13:47 hours. Lieutenant Charles Bailey of the 332nd Fighter Group's 100th Fighter Squadron was flying close escort at 26,000 feet when he spotted 6 Bf-109s diving on the bomber formation from 29,000 feet. The Germans came in fast, probably 380 mph, targeting the trailing B-17s. At 1,347.23, Bailey broke right and climbed to intercept. At 1,348.15, he achieved firing position behind the trailing 109. At 1,348.31, his .50 caliber rounds struck the Messerschmitt's engine and wing root. At 1,348.47, the German fighter rolled inverted and entered an uncontrolled spin. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 52 seconds. Kill time, 16 seconds from first rounds fired to aircraft falling out of control. The engagement escalated. At 1,349.02, two more 109s engaged Bailey's wingman, Lieutenant James Wright. Bailey reversed hard, pulling 6 GS in a climbing turn. At 1,349.38, he achieved deflection shot on one attacker. At 1,349.51, that 109 exploded. Kill time, 13 seconds. At 1,350, 14, the remaining 4 German fighters disengaged, diving away at full throttle. Total engagement duration, 2 minutes 51 seconds. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown engaged 3 FW-190s at 1,349.45. His first burst at 1,350.02 struck one fighter's fuel tank. At 1,350.09, the Focke-Wulf caught fire. At 1,350.21, the pilot bilayed out. Kill time, 19 seconds. At 1,351.03, Brown's second burst destroyed another FW-190. Kill time, 11 seconds. The third German fighter broke off. Enemy losses, 4 aircraft destroyed, 1 probable. 4 German pilots killed, 1 captured. American losses, 0. Bomber losses under 332nd Escort, 0. Kill ratio, 4-0. The ammunition expended in this 2-minute, 51-second engagement totaled approximately 1,840.50 caliber rounds. The Luftwaffe allocated 1,800 rounds monthly per fighter for all operations. This single brief engagement consumed more ammunition than a German fighter's entire monthly allocation. Hauptmann Weber witnessed the engagement from 4,000 feet above, leading his Staffel in reserve. He'd expected the American escort to maintain rigid formation, allowing his fighters to exploit gaps. Instead, the red tails, as the 332nd's distinctive markings became known, reacted instantly, aggressively, and with tactical sophistication that matched or exceeded veteran Luftwaffe pilots. His after-action report noted, enemy pilots demonstrated high skill level. They maintained mutual support while engaging aggressively. They did not abandon bombers. Recommend avoiding direct engagement with this unit. The report contradicted 3 years of certainty about American pilot inferiority and specifically contradicted assumptions about black pilots lacking the intelligence or courage for combat flying. Intelligence dismissed the reports as exaggeration or misidentification. Oberst Brandt reviewed combat reports from March 24 and stated the impossibility of such results. 6 experienced pilots with altitude advantage should have destroyed at least 2 bombers before escorts reacted. These Americans claim instant response, perfect positioning, and multiple kills without loss. Either our pilots are lying to cover incompetence, or these reports combine multiple engagements into one narrative. The mathematics of combat makes simultaneous perfection impossible. He filed the reports with a notation recommending investigation of German pilot performance rather than accepting claims about enemy capability. Major Halser reported to Luftwaffe High Command in early April with statistics from 15 bomber raids where the 332nd provided escort. This unit demonstrates loss rates 43% below 8th Air Force average. On missions where the 332nd provided exclusive escort to bomber groups, those groups suffered 0 losses in 11 of 15 missions. The 4 missions with losses averaged 1.8 bombers per mission. The 8th Air Force average is 4.7 bombers lost per mission. This represents a 62% reduction in bomber losses. He included production comparisons. American fighter production, 2,447 aircraft monthly. Luftwaffe fighter production, 1,016 monthly. A single American factory, North American Aviation's Inglewood plant, produces 384 P-51s monthly. This exceeds our top 3 factories' combined output of 347 Bf-109s monthly. They tried mass attacks with 20-plus fighters overwhelming escort screens through numerical superiority. The Americans maintained formation discipline and mutual support, negating numerical advantage. They attempted high-speed slashing attacks from altitude, hoping to destroy bombers before escorts reacted. American radar-equipped bombers provided warning, and the 332nd positioned fighters in defensive layers. They tried feint attacks to draw off escorts, then striking bombers from another angle. The red tails refused to take the bait, maintaining close escort. They attempted to exhaust American fighters through extended engagement, knowing P-51s had fuel limits. The Americans had drop tanks and rotation schedules that kept fresh fighters on station throughout the mission. On April 1, 1944, near Steyr, Austria, a major engagement demonstrated the shift in tactical reality. At 14:23 hours, 34 German fighters from 3 different squadrons attacked a formation of 48 B-17s escorted by 16 P-51s from the 332nd. Hauptmann Weber led 12 FW-190s. Oberleutnant Karl Richter led 14 Bf-109s. Major Hans Schmidt commanded 8 Me-410 heavy fighters. The German plan used three-axis attack. Me-410s with heavy 30 cannons would attack head-on, Bf-109s would engage from above, and FW-190s would strike from below simultaneously. At 1423:00, Me-410s began their attack run. At 1423:14, 4 P-51s from the 332nd's top cover element engaged them. At 1425:32, 2 Me-410s were destroyed. Kill times, 18 seconds and 23 seconds. The remaining Me-410s broke off. At 1424:00, Bf-109s dove on the bombers. At 1424:08, 6 P-51s from close escort engaged. At 1426:47, 4 Bf-109s were destroyed and 2 damaged. Kill times, 11, 14, 17, and 22 seconds. At 1424:30, FW-190s attacked from below. At 1424:38, 6 more P-51s engaged. At 1427:15, 3 FW-190s destroyed, 1 probable. Kill times, 9, 13, and 15 seconds. Total engagement duration, 4 minutes 15 seconds. Enemy aircraft destroyed, 9 confirmed. Enemy aircraft damaged or probable, 3. German pilots killed, 7. German pilots captured, 2 American losses, 1 P-51 damaged, pilot returned safely. Bomber losses, 0 kill ratio, 9, 0, or 9, 1 counting damaged American aircraft. The ammunition expended in this 4-minute engagement totaled approximately 6,200 rounds. The Luftwaffe allocated 5,400 rounds monthly for an entire squadron of 12 aircraft. The fuel consumed by 16 American fighters during this 7-hour mission, including combat maneuvering, totaled approximately 2,880 gallons. The Luftwaffe allocated 2,400 gallons weekly for an entire squadron's training and combat operations. Major Halser presented his final comprehensive analysis in May 1944. The mathematics are conclusive. The 332nd Fighter Group has flown 87 bomber escort missions. Bombers under their direct escort have lost 27 aircraft total. This is 0.31 bombers lost per mission. The 8th Air Force average is 1.47 bombers lost per mission on escorted missions and 4.7 per mission on unescorted missions. The 332nd has achieved a 79% reduction in losses compared to unescorted missions and a 79% reduction even compared to other escort groups. He included industrial data. American aircraft production now totals 7,898 monthly, including all types. Luftwaffe production totals 2,367 monthly. The Americans produce 3.3 aircraft for every one we produce. A single American production facility, Willow Run, produces 432 B-24 bombers monthly. Our entire bomber production totals 387 monthly across all types and facilities. We cannot win a war of attrition against this capacity. Oberst Brandt refused to accept the data. Pilot quality determines combat outcomes, not production capacity. We have shot down over 2,000 American heavy bombers. Our pilots remain superior despite numerical disadvantages. These red-tail pilots may have achieved some success through luck or against inexperienced German pilots, but the fundamental mathematics of combat expertise remain in our favor. He continued authorizing tactics that assumed American pilot inferiority, particularly regarding black pilots, even as evidence accumulated that the 332nd matched or exceeded average Luftwaffe fighter pilot performance. At Willow Run, Michigan, Ford Motor Company's bomber plant produced 1 B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes in April 1944. The facility operated 24 hours daily with 3 shifts. Every hour, another bomber completed final assembly. Every day, 14 4-engine heavy bombers emerged from a single building. This single facility produced more heavy bombers weekly than the entire German aviation industry produced monthly. Production progression at Willow Run demonstrated American manufacturing capability. In October 1942, Willow Run produced 7 B-24s that entire month. By May 1943, production reached 190 monthly. By March 1944, The facility produced 432 monthly, or 14.4 daily. This single facility was producing more four-engine bombers monthly than the entire German aviation industry produced heavy bombers, medium bombers, and night fighters combined. German bomber production totaled 387 aircraft monthly across all types in early 1944. Anna Klein, previously a seamstress from Detroit, now operated a rivet gun on B-24 wing assemblies, installing 340 rivets per shift. Her team of 12 workers completed 3 wing sections daily. She installed more rivets in one 8-hour shift than the average German aircraft assembly worker installed in 4 shifts. Her single station's production capacity, multiplied across the facility's 347 similar stations, created an output volume that German aviation industry executives considered physically impossible. When Luftwaffe intelligence analysts received reports of Willow Run's production numbers, they assumed the reports combined output from multiple facilities or included subassemblies rather than complete aircraft. James Washington, from Atlanta, operated a hydraulic press that formed aluminum wing spars, producing 47 spars per shift. His single station's daily output of structural components exceeded the total daily spar production of Messerschmitt's Regensburg factory, which produced 23 complete Bf-109 fighters daily using 47 spars. His machine alone could theoretically supply spars for the entire daily German fighter production if the components were compatible. The Regensburg factory employed 3,400 workers. Washington's single press, operated by 1 man per shift with 2 support workers, exceeded their spar production capacity. Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief and $1-a-year government consultant, managed the Willow Run operation that employed 42,000 workers producing 14 complete aircraft daily. His facility consumed 24,000 tons of aluminum monthly. The German aviation industry allocated 18,000 tons monthly for all aircraft production across all factories. Willow Run alone consumed more aluminum than the entire German military aviation sector. Americans discarded 2,400 pounds of aluminum scrap daily from Willow Run's machining operations. The Luftwaffe allocated 1,800 pounds of aluminum monthly for field repairs across an entire fighter wing. The daily scrap from one American factory exceeded the monthly allocation for maintaining 47 combat aircraft. In a single day, Willow Run's waste could have repaired the entire operational strength of 2 German fighter groups. The waste from single-shift operations exceeded total German production capacity in multiple categories. Workers threw away rivets with minor cosmetic defects that German factories would have carefully salvaged. A single day's discarded rivets totaled 840 pounds. The Luftwaffe allocated 620 pounds of rivets monthly for an entire fighter wing's maintenance and repair operations. Workers discarded hydraulic fluid that showed any contamination rather than filtering and reusing it. Daily hydraulic fluid waste totaled 340 gallons. The Luftwaffe allocated 280 gallons monthly for an entire bomber squadron's hydraulic system maintenance. One American factory's waste exceeded what Germany allocated for keeping 14 combat bombers operational. The cafeteria at Willow Run discarded more food daily than German workers received monthly in rations. The facility's cafeterias threw away 1,200 pounds of edible food daily from overproduction and plate waste. The average German aircraft factory worker received 840 pounds of food annually, or 70 pounds monthly. Willow Run's daily cafeteria waste could have fed 410 German aircraft workers for one day. Americans threw away machine tools that showed excessive wear but remained functional. In April 1944, Willow Run scrapped 23 drill presses that no longer met precision tolerances for primary structure, but remained adequate for secondary work. These 23 drill presses could have equipped the entire machine shop at the Dornier aircraft factory in Friedrichshafen. The German factory had 19 drill presses and desperately needed more. The electrical power consumed at Willow Run exceeded the entire power allocation for the German aviation industry in Bavaria. Willow Run consumed 47 million kilowatt-hours monthly. The Bavarian aircraft industry, producing approximately 287 aircraft monthly across 12 factories, received an allocation of 43 million kilowatt-hours monthly. One American factory consumed more electrical power than 12 German factories combined. Major Halser included Willow Run statistics in his May report. This single American facility produces 432 heavy bombers monthly. Our entire production of comparable aircraft totals 89 monthly. They produce 4.8 bombers for every comparable German aircraft. More significantly, their waste stream in aluminum, tools, and components exceeds our production capacity. They throw away more than we produce. This is not a war of tactics or courage. This is industrial annihilation. June 9, 1944, near Munich, Germany. The engagement began at 15:34 hours. 47 German fighters from 4 different squadrons assembled to overwhelm 12 P-51s from the 332nd, escorting 36 B-17s. The Germans held numerical superiority of nearly 4-1 in fighters. Oberst Brandt personally led the attack, commanding 14 FW-190s. He designed the tactics specifically to counter the Red Tail's close-escort doctrine. Simultaneous attacks from 4 axes with numerical superiority at each point. At 1534:00, the attack commenced. At 1534:04, Red Tail top cover engaged the first German element. At 1536:22, 3 enemy fighters destroyed. Kill times, 16 seconds, 11 seconds, 19 seconds. At 1534:30, a second German element attacked from below. At 1534:35, Red Tail close-escort engaged. At 1537:08, 4 enemy fighters destroyed. Kill times, 9 seconds, 14 seconds, 18 seconds, 13 seconds. At 1535:00, Brandt's element made the primary attack. At 1535:03, American fighters engaged. At 1537:41, 5 enemy fighters destroyed, including Brandt's aircraft. Kill times, 8 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds, 19 seconds, 11 seconds. At 1537:47, Oberst Heinrich Brandt's FW-190 took hits from Lieutenant Roscoe Brown's concentrated burst. The .50 caliber rounds severed the control cables and ignited the fuel tank. At 1537:58, the aircraft exploded. Brandt did not bail out. Elapsed time from engagement to death: 11 seconds from first American rounds hitting his aircraft to complete structural failure. The man who had dismissed the Red Tails as inferior died in 11 seconds of combat against them. The engagement continued. At 1535:30, the 4th German element attacked. At 1535:34, engagement began. At 1538:15, 3 enemy fighters destroyed, 2 damaged. Kill times, 17 seconds, 14 seconds, 21 seconds. At 1538:30, all remaining German fighters disengaged and fled. Total engagement duration, 4 minutes 30 seconds. Final statistics: enemy aircraft destroyed, 15 confirmed. Enemy aircraft damaged, 3 probable. German pilots killed, 13 including 1 Oberst. German pilots captured, 2 American losses, 0. Bomber losses under 332nd Escort, 0. Kill ratio, 15, 0. The ammunition expended exceeded monthly allocations for an entire German squadron. The fuel consumed in combat maneuvering by 12 American fighters exceeded the weekly combat allocation for 24 German fighters. Hauptmann Weber survived the engagement but witnessed its progression from a position 6,000 feet above the combat. His report to Luftwaffe High Command abandoned previous certainty. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. The Americans didn't just defeat us. They destroyed an attack force of 47 aircraft using 12 fighters. The numerical advantage meant nothing. The tactical sophistication meant nothing. They reacted instantly to every attack axis, maintained mutual support throughout, never abandoned the bombers, and killed our pilots with mechanical efficiency. I watched Oberst Brandt, one of our finest tacticians with 87 victories, die in seconds. The mathematics were wrong. Our assumptions were wrong. These pilots are not inferior. They may be superior. August 1945, POW Camp, Fort Hood, Texas. Major Friedrich Halser sat across from American intelligence officers, providing testimony for historical records and strategic bombing analysis. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. American aircraft production totaled 96,318 military aircraft in 1944. German production totaled 39,807. You produced 2.4 aircraft for every German aircraft. A single American factory, Willow Run, produced 4,200 B-24 bombers in 1944. Our entire heavy bomber production was 1,147 aircraft. One of your factories produced more heavy bombers than our entire aviation industry. Hauptmann Klaus Weber, also interned at Fort Hood, provided tactical analysis. I saw the 332nd Fighter Group destroy a force of 47 German fighters using 12 P-51s. The Americans had numerical disadvantage of 4-1. They achieved 15 confirmed kills with 0 losses. Traditional combat mathematics said this was impossible. We assumed they would fight defensively, protecting bombers while we inflicted attrition. Instead, they fought offensively while simultaneously protecting bombers. They didn't just outproduce us. They revolutionized escort doctrine itself. Previous American escorts would chase our fighters, abandoning bombers. The Red Tails stayed with their bombers and killed us when we came to them. Additional testimonies from captured Luftwaffe personnel revealed the psychological and tactical impact. Oberleutnant Karl Richter, captured after the June 9 engagement. We brought World War I tactics to a production war. They understood that pilot skill matters less than pilot availability. They could lose 1,000 pilots and have 2,000 replacements trained within 3 months. Their excess training capacity exceeded our maximum effort. A single specialized training facility, Tuskegee, produced more pilots monthly than our entire Southern Training Command. Major Hans Schmidt, captured bomber pilot. They could lose 500 B-17s and replace them in 6 weeks. We lost 500 fighters and couldn't replace them in 6 months. The mathematics were inevitable. Unlimited American production versus limited German capacity equals German defeat. Our tactical victories became strategic irrelevance. Hauptmann Weber provided specific production comparisons. Your pilot training allocated 320 flying hours before combat deployment. Hours had degraded to 147 hours by late 1944. Your pilots arrived with more experience. A single American pilot's training consumed more fuel than we allocated to 3 replacement pilots. You threw away more aviation fuel in training than we used in combat operations. Production statistics stated by German prisoners confirmed the industrial disparity. American fighter production, 37,800 aircraft in 1944. Luftwaffe fighter production, 25,200 aircraft in 1944. Single American facility, North American Aviation Inglewood Plant, 5,400 P-51 Mustangs in 1944, or 450 monthly. Entire German Bf-109 production, 14,212 aircraft in 1944, or 1,184 monthly across multiple factories. One American factory produced 38% of what Germany's entire fighter industry produced. The 332nd Fighter Group proved that democratic principles could produce military excellence. Free workers outproduced slaves. Democratic cooperation exceeded totalitarian command. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under 96,318 aircraft, 2.4 million tons of aluminum, and unlimited training capacity. The Luftwaffe's assumption that racial inferiority would manifest in combat performance collided with reality. The Red Tails achieved lower bomber loss rates than the 8th Air Force average precisely because democratic society cultivated excellence rather than constrained it by arbitrary racial hierarchies. March 14, 1944. Oberst Heinrich Brandt had laughed at the intelligence report about black American pilots flying escort missions, dismissing them as evidence of American desperation. June 9, 1944. Brandt died in 11 seconds of combat against Lieutenant Roscoe Brown of the 332nd Fighter Group. His mockery became history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 10,000 dead German pilots, 25,000 destroyed German aircraft, and total strategic defeat. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. The Tuskegee Airmen demonstrated that military excellence emerges from merit and training, not racial classification. Their 15,500 sorties, 112 aerial victories, and historically low bomber loss rates proved that democratic principles, properly implemented, create tactical superiority. Industrial democracy defeated military dictatorship through production capacity that exceeded consumption, training systems that exceeded attrition, and tactical competence that exceeded assumptions. The Red Tails flew their last combat mission on April 30, 1945. In 200 missions and 15,943 sorties, they destroyed 112 enemy aircraft in aerial combat, 150 aircraft on the ground, and sank 1 destroyer. They earned 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 14 Bronze Stars, 744 Air Medals, and 1 Silver Star. They proved that racist assumptions about combat capability had no basis in reality, only in prejudice. The mathematics that Oberst Brandt thought irrefutable, that racial superiority determined combat outcomes, proved completely, catastrophically wrong.